They wanted my vacation home. When I said no, they clapped as my father slapped me, right in front of 30 guests. That night, something in me snapped. Oh, this isn't just a family feud. It's what happens when the scapegoat finally fights back. Please comment number 3 to continue reading the story. The lakeside cabin was never just a property to me. It was my sanctuary. Inherited from my grandfather 3 years ago, it sat quietly on 2 acres of serene land with private access to the water. My husband, Jacob, and I spent our weekends there, escaping the noise of the city and reconnecting with peace. It was ours, a sacred space filled with memories, calm, and simplicity. But then came Finn, Jacob's younger brother, 26, chronically unemployed, and known for one failed venture after another. For years, his poor decisions were bailed out by their parents, Carol and Dennis, who never stopped treating him like a misunderstood boy rather than a grown man who refused to grow up. 6 months ago, he started dating Amber, a single mother with a 3-year-old daughter named Lily. They lived in a cramped flat and were clearly struggling, but that struggle soon became our problem, or so they thought. At family dinners, Finn would casually joke about how lucky Jacob and I were to own a second home that sat empty most days of the week. Amber would chime in with praise about the cabin's fresh air, better schools, and how a child like Lily deserved to grow up somewhere peaceful. What started as harmless remarks slowly turned into something else. One afternoon, they dropped by our apartment uninvited. They claimed they were in the area, but the way Amber eagerly asked to see photos of the cabin felt deliberate. She asked about the school district, local job markets, and how often the place was occupied. Finn's questions shifted from playful curiosity to logistical inquiries about property use and guest space. Later that evening, Jacob confessed that Finn had been calling him, asking if they could stay at the cabin temporarily while they looked for a better home. I was stunned. Jacob knew how much that place meant to me. It was my connection to my grandfather, my legacy. The idea of someone living there permanently, especially family with a child and endless needs, felt like a violation. I told Jacob plainly it wasn't happening. He agreed at first. But the pressure escalated quickly. Finn painted himself as a victim of circumstance. Carol and Dennis began calling daily, guilt-tripping Jacob, saying Lily deserved better. They even suggested that we could use the guest bedroom while Finn and his family stayed in the main cabin. Then came the final blow. Carol organized a family meeting where everyone took turns explaining why we should allow Finn and Amber to move in. They brought school rankings, employment brochures, and emotional appeals. Even little Lily was there, silent, used as a prop to tug at heartstrings. They didn't ask for help. They demanded it, under the disguise of family love. And Jacob sat through it all, silent. That silence, it spoke louder than anything. After that ambush of a family meeting, the atmosphere between Jacob and me shifted. He wasn't arguing with me, but he wasn't defending me either. His silence lingered like fog in our apartment. He kept saying things like, "I just want to help them out temporarily," and "their family." But I could see it. He was torn, not because he didn't agree with me, but because he didn't want to disappoint them. I reminded him that this wasn't about refusing to help. It was about boundaries. That cabin wasn't a guest house. It was part of me. And we had offered help before. Small loans, babysitting, even co-signing when Finn almost got evicted. But they always wanted more. And now, they wanted everything. A week later, while I was away on a business trip, Jacob texted me, "Don't be upset. I told Finn they can stay at the cabin for 2 weeks, just until they find something permanent." I stared at the screen in disbelief. 2 weeks? With Finn? Temporary could mean months. And I knew Amber. She'd already be mentally redecorating the place and enrolling Lily in the local preschool. I called Jacob immediately. He sounded exhausted, defensive. They had nowhere else to go. What was I supposed to do? "You were supposed to talk to me first," I said flatly. "This isn't your property to offer." That stung him. I could hear it in the silence. When I returned home, he was waiting with flowers. I didn't care. The cabin had already been handed over, keys and all. Finn had moved in. Amber had posted photos on Facebook. Fresh start, grateful for family. That caption made me sick. The comments under her post were worse. Looks like you're finally where you belong. Deserves so much better than that city dump. Your sister-in-law is lucky to have a heart like yours in the family. Sister-in-law? We weren't even close. Amber had known me for 2 years, Max. She'd never once offered help when I was sick. She didn't come to my father's funeral, but here she was, playing perfect victim-turned-heroine on social media, while I was the villain who tried to gatekeep a family treasure. That night, Jacob tried to reassure me. It's only for 2 weeks. I looked him dead in the eye. If they're not out in exactly 14 days, I'm calling a lawyer. He nodded, but I could see doubt in his face. He didn't believe me, but he would. By day 8, I already knew what was coming. The temporary stay at the cabin had transformed into a full-blown relocation project. Amber started forwarding mail there. Finn registered the Wi-Fi under his name. On day 10, they painted one of the bedroom walls Lily's favorite color, bright yellow. Every action screamed permanence. Jacob tried to downplay it. They just want to make her feel safe. It doesn't mean they're staying forever. But it did, and he knew it. I drove up to the cabin on day 12 without warning. Amber answered the door wearing my grandfather's old fishing hoodie, the one I'd left in the closet for sentimental reasons. Her eyes flicked with surprise, then calculation. "Oh, hi, we weren't expecting you," she said with a rehearsed smile. "Clearly," I said, stepping inside without permission. The place didn't feel like mine anymore. Toys cluttered the hallway. The antique lamp from the entryway was gone. My grandmother's embroidered pillow had a juice stain on it. It felt like an Airbnb I regretted renting. Finn came out of the kitchen, holding a beer at noon. "Hey, didn't Jacob tell you we were settling in a bit longer? We found a local daycare. Lily loves it. And Amber's interviewing at that bank down the road. It's really coming together." I stared at him. "You were supposed to be out in 2 days. He gave a shrug and a smirk. "Come on. You know how hard it is to find a place on short notice. We're doing the best we can." I turned to Amber. "You're not even pretending this is temporary anymore." Her smile dropped. "What's your problem? We're family." I left. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I drove straight home, packed a bag, and told Jacob I needed space. He didn't argue. The next day, I contacted a lawyer. Turns out, even though the cabin was mine alone, listed solely in my name, getting squatters out, especially family, could be a messy process. My lawyer advised documenting everything, especially any sign that they were establishing permanent residency. I called the utility company. Finn had already requested a name change for the electric bill. I took screenshots of Amber's posts, noting phrases like "new chapter" and "finally home." By day 14, I served them formal notice through my attorney. The backlash was immediate. Carol called me a heartless witch. Dennis accused me of tearing the family apart. Amber posted cryptic messages online about bitter women with no children, trying to sabotage young moms doing their best. And Jacob? He was caught in the crossfire. He still hadn't moved out of our apartment, but emotionally, he was gone. Defending them, explaining them, making excuses. By the end of the month, I'd made my decision. If he wanted to be a brother first, then he could stay one. I was done being the wife who sacrificed everything. I filed for a restraining order to have them removed from the property. My attorney told me it wouldn't be easy. Courts were reluctant to issue orders against family without evidence of harassment or abuse. But I had a growing file. Screenshots, mail forwarding requests, utility changes, and a few voice messages from Finn and Carol that bordered on threatening. That, plus proof of property ownership in my name only, was enough to make a case. When the notice was served, Finn lost it. He left a raging voicemail accusing me of evicting a child. Carol followed it up with a sobbing phone call about how I was ripping apart Lily's stability. How a good woman would help raise the next generation. Dennis sent Jacob an email titled, "You let her do this," as if I wasn't a person with autonomy. Amber posted a selfie at the cabin's fireplace with the caption, "Some people only care about bloodlines when it's convenient." The comments were brutal. Most people didn't know the full story. All they saw was a child and a mother being forced out by the supposedly cold sister-in-law. But that post worked in my favor. Publicly declaring the cabin as her home? Perfect for court. My attorney was thrilled. Jacob, on the other hand, was unraveling. The man who once held my hand during long hikes at that cabin now sat across from me in a lawyer's office, silent and pale. He never officially opposed me, but he never supported me either. That silence cut deeper than any insult. The court date came. Finn tried to plead that they were invited guests, and that the property was shared family space, but my documentation was ironclad. The judge ruled in my favor. They had 10 days to vacate. You'd think that would be the end, but it wasn't. On day 9, I drove to the cabin with a locksmith. The place was trashed, not vandalized, but emotionally gutted. Photos removed from frames. My grandmother's handmade quilt gone. Lily's toys were left behind, like a graveyard of forced innocence. A note on the fridge in Amber's handwriting read, "Congrats on your empty house. Hope it hugs you at night." And Jacob? He packed his things and moved in with his parents. He didn't even say goodbye. I filed for divorce 2 weeks later. People talk about losing a marriage like it's a death, but honestly, it felt more like removing a tumor. I didn't realize how much weight I was carrying until it was gone. That cabin, the one they tried to steal, became my healing ground again. I painted over Lily's yellow wall, replaced the old furniture, planted wildflowers in my grandfather's garden beds. I let myself cry. I let myself breathe. And when I was ready, I invited a few close friends up for the weekend. Real friends, chosen family. That's when I realized, you don't owe your peace to people just because they share your blood. Months passed, and slowly, the silence became peaceful rather than hollow. I spent weekends at the cabin journaling, cooking my grandfather's old recipes, and kayaking at sunrise. The house no longer echoed with their voices, demands, or manipulations. It finally felt like mine again, in soul, not just in title. People in town stopped me at the farmer's market or bakery to say they'd heard something about that cabin family drama. I didn't confirm or deny. I didn't owe anyone gossip. But what surprised me was how many quietly added, "Good for you." I joined a local book club, volunteered with a trailside conservation group, relearned how to be alone without being lonely. One afternoon, I bumped into Nate, a local architect I'd met once during a town zoning meeting years back. He remembered me, said he admired how I handled everything. He didn't press, just listened. We started with coffee, then hikes, then dinners. He never once asked me to give anything up. Around the same time, Amber's Facebook went quiet. Word got around that Finn had left her. Lily was now living with her maternal grandparents. Dennis and Carol, estranged from Jacob. Apparently, after I filed for divorce and took my half of our savings, Jacob discovered Finn had secretly borrowed money using our shared credit line. I guess family loyalty has limits when the debt collectors come knocking. But none of that brought me joy. Not in the gloating way. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace, and that's exactly what I had. The court had finalized the divorce. The title to the cabin was updated. Only my name, with a clause preventing future legal claims. I wrote a will, ensuring that if anything happened to me, the cabin would go to a community organization for women starting over. I didn't want it to ever be used against another woman the way they tried to use it against me. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees and I sat on the porch with a glass of wine, Nate beside me, I thought about how far I'd come. Not just physically, but emotionally. I wasn't the woman who cried in her car after family meetings anymore. I wasn't the wife who bit her tongue to keep the peace. I was someone who had chosen herself and kept choosing her, and maybe, just maybe, that was the best kind of ending. Because in the end, they didn't take the cabin. They didn't take my dignity. They didn't take my future. They only lost access to someone who loved them. And that, I've realized, was their real loss, not mine.